Welcome to Retraction. I'm your co-host, Antoine.
And I guess I'm your co-host. Is that how you do it? Co-host?
I've done it that way a couple of times, and I decided I like it.
All right. Well, I'm also a co-host, and I'm Jamie. And together we reverse course through discourse.
It is episode 99 on the road to 100.
Wow, one more. That's all we got, and then the show goes into 101, and I guess you're past 100, and then I have to find a new tagline in order to really zest up the listeners. Yeah, because everyone's super excited. So almost to 100.
I think so. I hope so.
As always, before we get started, folks, if you can show us some love and subscribe, like, share, and comment on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, both of those at Retraction Media. And as always, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, and more.
Cool. So, Jamie, I did not fold. I have not watched the World Cup, but I'll be honest, I was worried because if the U.S. had beaten the Netherlands, yeah, it would definitely have gotten tougher. It would have been. I felt.
Because I asked you if they got to the finals.
Yeah. And I said I would.
You very confident.
I am confident. Well, I was confident. I'm still confident because, well, luckily they're knocked out.
Because now, Neil, no one will be able to prove you wrong.
Luckily they got knocked out because it was definitely getting tougher and tougher. I was going to hold fast because I'm a man. I'm a man of my word, and I was not going to relinquish that word. So I'm sad for the U.S. men because this was a fantastic run. Of course, they'd have a fantastic run.
If Antoine wandered into a bar that day and they happened to have it on the TV, that's not his fault.
The bar's already paid for it. I'm not actively helping do anything. They've already paid the fee. It's going to be, whether there's nobody in the bar or I'm in the bar, they've already paid.
There you go, folks.
It's still a boycott. I'm there to drink. I'm there to service my local establishment. I'm buying local. And it just so happened that my local bar is showing the World Cup final and America was in it. That is called coinkydinks.
Oh, there you go. All right.
That's a coinkydink. But I'm still boycotting.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. I do have a retraction. I have another retraction. Well, that's not really a retraction, but I have a retraction.
That's more of a clarification.
Yeah, exactly. That's a clarity. I do have. You know what? One of the things that I was really concerned about in the delegate
retractee.
Well, yeah. One of the things I was really concerned about in the Cherokee episode with Kim Teehee was that when I listened back to the episode, I was like, "Am I saying that wrong?" It didn't sound right to me, and I was kind of mortified. I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so bad," because I really wanted. We did this episode. I thought it was really good, and then I've got the name wrong. But luckily, I went back, listened to a couple of interviews with her, and it is in fact Teehee. She said Teehee herself.
Oh,
she said it herself. Yeah.
There you go. You can't argue with the source of truth.
Yeah. So thankfully that wasn't an embarrassing retraction. Now I did have another retraction.
Boy,
this is an actual retraction.
We're living up to the name today.
I got a text from a dear listener, it's a friend of mine, and he basically chided me for being a bit flippant with the story you did with the photonic chip. Was that it? Is that the name of that chip?
Oh, the microchip?
Yeah. It was a microchip. It was like
the optical chip. Yeah.
Chip. Yeah. So he wrote me. He said he was like, Antoine, the photonic chip is important because you can run a lot of parallel processes very quickly, such as neural net training, and that's where it touches everyday life. He also did note that procedurally generated porn is on the table, but more or less, it's about the neural net training. Now, I said, all right, he's a scientist. I was like, all right. Well, I was like, what is neural net training? And he was like, well, it's like machine learning, so AI type stuff, which I don't know if you've been, what's the word, inundated with the new app that basically you give it like 10 photos and it produces this type of like oil painting. It's like a smearing of you in various poses. No one's done this with you yet? No one has showed it to you?
No.
I forget the name.
You're the only one that shows me stuff like that. But when you're talking, I'm just thinking of George Costanza posing.
Yeah, sure. My point is that it's gonna be more AI art, I guess, which seems to be the pinnacle of how it affects everyday life. So I asked him to clarify a little bit, and he said, okay, think fusion research and protein folding. So I said, this is a step to cold fusion. Is that what you're saying? And he said, I can't speak to the temperature, but I know they use a lot of AI to determine the shape of the magnetic coil. So there's that as well.
There you go. See, opening up. First of all, that is fantastic that a listener was able to chime in and give us a little more direction because we were struggling, right? We're not in this field. You have a friend that is, a listener that is, and now we have a little bit more clarity, a retractee on what optical chips can unlock for us. Did your friend also chime in on how it compares to quantum computing and graphene chips or anything like that? Because I can't find that out by Google searches, and I'm just curious.
I mean, he said that if he wanted to, he'd be happy to come on and explain a little bit more. But maybe that's a possibility in the future.
Oh, there we go.
Because yes, he did say he could explain that.
That's fantastic. But I'm super curious.
I didn't understand.
Why don't you try to do it, and then he can correct you again when he shows up?
Well, I can't even begin. That's me trying. I can't begin to try. But when he said protein folding, I was like, what the heck is that? And he said basically designing functional protein is the holy grail of genetic engineering. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
I'm not going to pretend that I know anywhere near as much as him. He sounds like he's in it.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So that's my retraction. I was flippant with a new discovery.
Hey, a little dismissive of something fairly groundbreaking, I thought.
I mean, he did.
As a layman.
He was, he's on my wavelength. He said most likely it'll probably just result in solving Sudoku instantly. But otherwise these are a lot of other possibilities, which is like I guess
12,000 terabytes a second, if I remember correctly. Give me a break.
He said, yeah. So there's that. A little bit of that. A little bit of mambo in my life.
Well, there you go, folks.
Yeah. All right.
We're fair here. We're fair.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We're not above being wrong. That's the point of the show.
So if we ever get something wrong, or you have more color to add, just let us know.
I mean, he didn't say I was wrong. He just said that there's more to it. He did say procedurally generated porn is possible.
Yeah, he's a master of his craft. He knows how to let you down softly. He knows you. He clearly knows you.
He knows how to lay out the pad.
He knows how to pat your ego.
Yeah,
but also kind of like reorient you. Yeah, he's good.
He laid down the crash pad. He put it down and he said, "Here, rest your thick little head on this."
He's like, Antoine, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but let me tell you how to think. Let me tell you how to approach this from now on. Yeah, it's good. No, I appreciate it.
I can move on to you. What do you got?
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. All right. Let's go into something a little more. Actually, well, yeah. See where this goes. So, some news out of France, actually. I think recently. Oh, I like that. Authorities in France want citizens to turn in around 6 million heirloom weapons from earlier wars, as they still pose a danger to the public. 90% of these weapons have been inherited. Have you heard about this?
No, not at all. I'm surprised.
So and you can probably add a little more cultural flavor to all of this, but the weapons are largely unregistered, but France says there will be no legal consequences for handing them in. And they've claimed that they've already got 1.6 million munitions and 65,000 firearms already. Those that choose to keep their weapons will just have to register them. This is it looks like in somewhat a response to public outcry over a spike in the number of murders of women by their partners. And that's kind of prompted this gun collection drive.
Wow.
So I'm not familiar with the gun culture in France. I don't know if you are at all.
No, I'm not. Not at all.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there is none. There isn't anything to speak of. Hence, they're asking for heirloom weaponry. Which is for the listener. I mean, I'm assuming that is any weapons that have been handed down from any of the previous
World War I, World
Wars,
War II. Yeah,
probably before that. I'm sure
probably
there's Napoleonic Wars. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's some weapons hanging around. A couple of muskets with some ball shots. Sitting around in someone's.
I'm thinking it's a different country.
Special case.
Different country, but seen out of Hot Fuzz when they go to that farmer's shed, and it's just got all the munitions and just an old sea mine and stuff in it. Yeah,
and grenades, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different things that are just lining the shelves of the attics or the cottages of the French.
So it's kind of cool that they're doing this. There's an uptick in violence. A lot of that violence apparently has been stemming from the use of these types of weapons because they are still capable. They're still dangerous. Doesn't matter if it's a German Luger from back in the day, it's still going to fire, and it was capable of killing people then. And they just get inherited. So you just pass these on and they don't get registered, and they're not tracked in that way. And about 6 million on the market is kind of insane.
It's kind of cool. They're allowing you to register. So it's not, the way that America would view the government asking about your various weapons. They're just saying, hey, if you have them and you don't want to turn them in, all we're asking is that you register them. That's pretty good. I mean, we don't do that.
Well, while we're comparing, according to 2018 Global Burden of Disease study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association, firearm homicide rates in the U.S. are 13 times greater than they are in France.
Yes.
And 22 times greater than in the European Union as a whole.
Correct.
The U.S. ranks first for firearm homicides per 100,000 population among high-income countries. If you're going to try and whip out the population argument, we still are number one when you take that into account. And guns are the leading cause of death of children in the U.S. There's no way around that one.
That's correct.
So
and
what?
It's also one of the leading causes of death with regard to domestic violence.
Well, there you go.
I mean, it's we have a huge domestic violence gun problem as well. We just don't care. As a country, we don't care.
Well, it's so funny because I've kind of had some debates on this on Twitter for as few dollars that may be. And what's always brought up are the mass shootings, and they're atrocious, and they usually get the most play because of how horrific they are, but they're just a fraction of the causes of gun violence in this country. And the majority of it is everyday gun violence, not the weekly mass shootings that we have, but the daily gun violence, domestic violence that happens throughout the country every day in multiple homes a day. So
that's correct.
You're right to point that out. And so I'm not so sure I have to ask if we think that heirloom weapons are on the table for a drive like this here, but I do want to point out that other countries have issues and they work to solve them, and we do nothing. And I'm not even being sarcastic or hyperbolic. We do nothing.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, various counties or cities have done gun buyback programs.
Yeah, not the country though.
No, not at all. No, nothing on a federal level.
And
no.
I mean, I don't know how often the mass shootings at least are happening within the resident's own town, right? Don't they usually travel? Isn't that
usually? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not. Let's not.
Well,
I think so, but that may not.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point to look up, right?
Yeah.
So, but I don't want that to detract. That yes, you have. Okay, I don't know how generous you want to be with counties and towns, but think of how many counties and towns we have in this country. There's certainly that there's not that many buyback programs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't even matter because I mean, if we're going to talk about the last mass shooting, which is the Colorado one. What's the name of the LGBTQ nightclub? What was it called? Do you remember? Okay, that's fine. But that guy bought the gun the same day.
Yeah. So you can go to shows and stuff.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's
shows
not
and all that stuff. Yeah. No, there's so many. It's admirable to mention. Yes, there are some towns and counties that are trying to do the right thing, but it is not going to solve the issue.
Not at all. No.
and you have someone like France, because I actually was going back and forth this yesterday into today with someone on Twitter, and they were they like pointed to, an unarmed citizenry in the past has always led to genocide and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, you can always
that's one of the main talking points.
You can always pick that stuff out, but there's also plenty of good examples that you can lean on. And who's to say that we can't just do what works and maybe not things that don't work? I just think
I don't buy that. I don't know if that's true. That's the other thing. I don't know if that's true. That stat, I think, is I think that's hyperbolic. And you know what? I should just come out. I should say it without adamant proof to contradict it. But I really do feel like that stat is pulled largely from periods in our history where guns were so expensive, most people just didn't have them. So it's not necessarily that there's also a moratorium on having guns. It's just that they were prohibitively expensive. So you had unarmed.
You also didn't have forms of government where you could engage. I mean, instead of fantasizing that you are going to use whatever weaponry, I will give you whatever weaponry you have at your house to overthrow nuclear power with superior air, space, sea, land forces.
It's absurd. It's absurd.
It's just a fantasy. It's a sick fantasy, and it's not possible. But that has never been that way. Like, instead of fantasizing about that, we could engage and actually demand reform so that you even have more power than you have today. It's just, in the past, arguably, private citizens probably could have massed armies that could rival. And then that was taken away. Like, it's not even possible.
They couldn't.
It's a different form of government then.
But I'm just saying, let's your the statement you just said basically trumps anything I was just talking about, because that's always the crux of the argument. It's like, okay, great. Yeah. Well, relative to the weight of how armed your government happens to be, which is the most armed government in the world, it's as if you have no weapons whatsoever. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. Yeah. It's the equivalent of bringing, what is it? What were we talking about last time? We gave it David and Goliath slings. You're basically bringing slings to a gunfight. That's the equivalent of going up against the United States Army with whatever weapons you could buy on the street. I'll
argue that it's like bringing a sling to the United States Army.
Yeah, that's about right. That's even more accurate.
Dude, they probably have space lasers. I mean, you can't do anything. They have nuclear powered submarines.
They have drones,
aircraft carriers,
they have drones that can like drop bombs that tunnel into. I mean, it's basically what we were doing to the Afghan army. You can't even dig a trench. I mean, nothing deep enough. It's insane. There's nothing you could do if you think it's a sick fantasy that is so unbridled from reality. It's absurd for anyone to even bring that into the conversation as a reasoning as to why they need to arm themselves. It's just so crazy. Plus, the amount of money that we funneled to the police forces in this country, the NYPD rivals most state militaries. There's like a really interesting state about that.
I have to transition to the next topic.
Sure. Okay.
I have to transition into my next topic. We're like too on the nose with this one now.
Okay, fine. Go.
All right. This next story raised my eyebrows, and this is like just a perfect segue. It looks like the San Francisco Police Department now has the authority to kill alleged criminals using robots. And I quote, "When risk of loss of life to members of the public or officers is imminent and outweighs any other force option available." End quote. Have you heard about this?
What robots do they have?
It's a good question. So they actually have a lot of different types of robots, but those robots are like bomb detection, bomb disposal type robots.
Okay.
And my knee-jerk reaction
How do you use those in the offensive? They're like, it's a robot that goes to can a bomb. I mean, how do you use that to kill somebody?
Well, it's funny because there's actually a precedent for this. In July 2016, the Dallas Police Department killed a suspect using a robot armed with a bomb for what's believed to be the first time in U.S. history. I quote, "We saw no other option but to use our bomb robot and place a device on its extension for it to detonate where the suspect was," end quote.
Wow.
Yeah. Now listen, my knee-jerk reaction to reading this news, and not even that Dallas bit, was obviously like went straight to abuse, executions in the street without due process, like what we see today on steroids. And then I went down the rabbit hole, and even though it doesn't happen now, the normalization is there. And someone born into that reality, maybe the next generation, it's going to be so much easier for them to then just go farther away from what's acceptable and normal today. And that's kind of where my head was going. But I also wanted to explore the counter argument. And then when I looked up the story that was referenced, which was that Dallas one, again, I just read what I read to you, and I was like, oh my God, like they just strapped a bomb and drove this thing in and detonated it and killed this dude. And even the experts at that time in 2016 had reservations about the precedent that this set. But it was used in that situation because the suspect had killed 5 officers and wounded 7 others. And so I know that you could probably make an argument to say he still should have been brought in alive. You should have maybe laid a siege and negotiated or starved him out until he had to give up instead of driving in a bomb, and detonating it. I'm trying to see the other part of it. And is it ever okay to do that?
Just to seek revenge? I guess it is when you.
Is that how you would categorize it? Is that if the dude kills 5 people, wounds 7 others?
That's your justification. If that's your justification, that's my point.
I'm asking.
I'm trying to. Are you saying that he was a danger? I mean, obviously he's a danger to the populace, but first of all, I need to know more about that story, which is not really the crux of the why you're bringing this up. But I feel like I need to know the particulars about how did a suspect kill 6 police officers? That seems crazy to me.
I assume they tried to stop him.
Yeah, but I mean, what was he like? Or bail? I mean,
2016. It might have. I wonder if it was weren't people getting ambushed a few years ago?
Yes, but that it still did not come with that kind of death toll on the officer level. That's crazy. Anyway, I mean, look, it happened. Look, it happened. It's hard to judge it, right? Because without being there, without knowing more facts about it, the only thing that is off-putting is the means to which they dealt with the suspect, which is it's just that it would be one thing if they all ran in, bum rushed him, shot him up 32 times or whatever. It's just that it's unheard of. It's unprecedented. Because I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like you would be more shocked if you heard that the cops threw grenades in, right? Because cops don't have grenades. So I feel like because that's more conventional, I feel like that might be a little bit more shocking. I feel like you'd take a pause and be like, wait, what? They threw grenades into a building? I mean, wait, when did the police get grenades? But because it's like a robot, it feels a little more subdued. It's sort of like, is that as bad? But it's basically the same thing. That's sort of what I'm getting at. It's like, it's the same thing as if they basically launched a grenade launcher through the window or something. And you're just like, well, that's some heavy duty tech that I don't expect your everyday law enforcement to have. So I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like it's something that needs to be clarified in our legal system. And again, it's because we're so woefully behind. We talk about this all the time with technology and where it's going versus the laws on the books and how archaic much of the legal code happens to be. This would be an interesting one. I first of all, I mean, they felt like it was legal because they procured this robot with a bomb. First of all, where did the cops get a bomb? That's the other thing I want to know. Where the police have bombs? What is that? Is that new? Is that something I should know?
I'm sure they confiscate stuff, and I don't know how hard is
it. Yeah, but are you allowed to reuse it? Just because you confiscate cocaine doesn't mean that they're getting lit up in the.
Well, I guess someone would have to
prosecute, right?
I guess someone would have to prosecute them, right? Who's going to do that?
Yeah, well, that's always the question now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt anything you're saying, but clearly they did it, and I didn't read any prosecutions that followed. The next part that I thought of with this is that even if law enforcement now uses this sparingly, it will be normalized at home, even in that capacity, which kind of gives the military even more leeway to do what they do now.
Well, I mean,
but then once that's done and they can start using avatars, weaponized avatars in a sense, and then they go to sell back that tech to the police force, right? The surplus. Then how do you stop that? Because then it seems like that's how you take the leaps forward in using this.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, yeah, it begs the question. I want to know what it is that the police happen to have.
Because right now they rigged a bomb up to a drone, you know, on little
Well, that's what I'm
tracks and
wondering.
drove it in,
Right,
RV style, right? Like,
eventually, is it going to be air? Is it going to be an air drone that they're allowed to do?
Well, can you imagine once the military starts doing this and it's normal? Like, this is it's shocking. I didn't know this, but you know, it happened in 2016.
Well, didn't we talk about military tech with regard to the unmanned sniper?
AI can hunt and kill. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
and it can like harass retreating convoys and stuff and just keep hunting it. It can just drive around and hunt. And if it identifies a target, it can kill.
Well, I mean, there you go. So I mean, I feel like it comes into that vein because you're like you said, if the military, if they're able to use it, and at some point, because there is no restriction on the surplus, at least I'm not sure what the restriction is on surplus, because I think there are some police departments that have tanks. So I don't know what the restrictions are on surplus.
They had it in Die Hard.
They had it in Die Hard. That's right. So yeah, eventually at some point, I mean, it's scary stuff to think that you could see this in the streets being used as a means to, quell the population if they get out of hand. Because you're right. I mean, at some point, the fear is always that, right now we have the right to protest technically, but we've seen, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests, you saw the means to which the police were allowed to aggress protesters and use basically a myriad of legal justification to do so, which is basically to say that, almost like protesting is now illegal if it's obstructing the various laws, which is the point of protesting, by the way, people. Point of protesting is not to be, you'll apply for a permit to protest. It's not a parade. Protesting is supposed to be something that disrupts your the everyday life. That's why it gets attention. But anyway, it to me, yeah, that's where the fear is. If you could bring because then you could basically drive an automated machine through a crowd of protesters you're trying to disperse with tear gas, right? And the various, instead of, there's a lot of things you could just start doing, which is,
so that's what I'm getting to. Like what I meant by one of my earlier comments is this is shocking. And right now it'll be used for people who are killing other people and you can't stop them in a short period of time. Yeah. But then someone's going to be born into this and they're going to say, well, yeah, but what about this scenario? This riot that broke out, God, we need to break this up fast. Otherwise, we're going to incur millions or billions of dollars in property damage. Get the bomb drones in and clear out the streets. Yeah. Like, it's difficult to see that progress.
I don't know about we are going to incur property damage. The building, I mean, the certain...
No, I'm talking about that's on behalf of the government. The government would be saying that.
Yeah, well, yeah, to protect private property, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the government would be saying, maybe 50 years from now, the next generation, 25 years from now, someone that's born into this grows up and now is in a position of power where using bomb drones was normal for killers.
Right.
Then what happens if a riot ends in a fatality? Then you're good?
Yeah.
In somebody's eyes?
I mean, look, like you said, I mean, before it becomes normalized, it needs to be addressed by the court system. Or, I mean, God forbid, Congress take this up and actually say, hey, here's the limitations on what we expect to be done in terms of restoring law and order within the walls of our nation. We need limits. It can't be unlimited. That's the other thing. It's like, you cannot fear this is what's crazy about the people who, like, not to go back to the, you were saying that the whoever you were speaking to, the gentleman was talking about, you need to bear arms in order to protect yourself against the government. If you want to assuage that belief system, this is where it starts, by putting limits on what you as the government are allowed to do. If you continue down this path of just unlimited infinity, what is it, ramp up arms race against your own population, you can't just say, oh, we only use this against the bad guys. I mean, it's an arms race. And so what is it? It's that great line at the the end of the Dark Knight or so, where Alfred's talking to Batman and or Bruce Wayne, he's saying, or what is he saying, like, about escalation? You start wearing masks, now they start wearing masks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but sounds vaguely familiar.
It was profound.
You clearly. It stuck with me.
It was the moment. It left an imprint, I think about it now.
Remember there being a quote I liked in that movie. And I think it was towards the end, and I'm pretty sure Alfred said it.
He was like, hold on to your butts.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, it's concerning, to say the least. How about that? It's concerning to say the least. I wish that we knew more about it. I wish that it was probably something that was talked about a little bit more, because then I'd have more information to use to address it. But I just feel like we're in no man's land. It's just so unthinkable.
How is that not everywhere? We're allowed to bomb citizens. Like, we're allowed to bomb citizens, or how you said it, throw grenades. The police are now allowed to throw grenades at citizens. We've moved on from tear gas and water hose. It's now grenades. Yeah,
I mean, it's a wild story. That's a wild story. So,
all right. I only had a light one, but
I got a light one. Oh, I wanted to bring it back.
Go for it,
because it's so dark.
Go for it. Yeah.
You're gonna love this one. Hold on to your butts.
There you go. I was gonna say, like, use it right, man. Don't like Biff this. You know that reference?
Biff? No.
Yeah. Back to the Future. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
And
are you ready?
What? I see the title. What are you doing here?
Journey to New Heights, a unique global destination driven by cutting-edge technology in Neom. This is Trojena. Breathtaking architecture and innovative engineering fold seamlessly into the natural landscape. Ascend to a vertical village, a portal connecting the digital and the physical. The seasonal climate provides a multitude of high-altitude adventures in the Arabian Peninsula with the region's first outdoor ski experience. Enjoy the buzz of world-class entertainment, the crisp mountain air, and the world's most advanced health and well-being center nourish both body and soul. And as night falls, you can witness the stars as you've never seen them before. Welcome to Trojena, the mountains of Neom.
Welcome to Trojena. Trojena.
All right. Well, one, I didn't see a lot of people there. It didn't look very crowded. They were like world-class spot, and there's one dude doing yoga in front of like a fairly large floor-to-ceiling.
Well, it was mostly CG. It was mostly CG, Jamie. So I mean, it hasn't been built yet.
But if it's this big city, how are you supposed to enjoy the night sky? Isn't that like the whole thing with big cities? Is that it doesn't really work that way?
I mean, it's supposed to be eco-friendly in all capacities. I don't know what. First of all, again,
there's some wild architecture there.
We're back in the desert with skiing and seasonal everything. Yeah,
it sounds ecological.
So because I wanted to look at it a little bit more, I had to go to the neom.com website, where there's a big old button that says invest in Neom. So if anyone out there wants to dedicate some of their hard-earned cash to the city of the future,
send it to us first, and then we'll forward it on.
Yeah, of course. So part of what they were saying, which I thought was interesting, is that Trojena is part of Neom's regional plan, located 50 kilometers from the Gulf of Aqaba. That's Aqaba, coast in the heart of our nature region, with elevations ranging from 1,500 meters to 2,600 meters and covering an area of nearly 60 square kilometers, capitalizing on the different climate in the area where winter temperatures drop below 0 Celsius and year-round temperatures are generally 10 degrees cooler than the rest of the region. With its clear, fresh air and stunning views, Trojena will not only be a mesmerizing place to visit, but also a magical place to live and work. The workers are going to get to hang out here.
Yeah. So, which one do you like better, Trojena or the Line?
Well, they're one of the same. Trojena is right outside the Line.
It looks like you can escape Trojena. I mean, escape into the mountains, but
well, I mean,
it's
I don't
not
know
a walled city.
I don't know who needs to escape. It's going to have 3,600 plus hotel rooms and apartments, 100 plus world-class indoor and outdoor experiences. So
I mean, you should like this. I didn't see a lot of hierarchy to it. It seemed all like sprawl. It seemed more sprawly.
I'm sure the workers are going to be hanging out in the 3,600 plus hotel rooms. I mean,
I don't know what those three pearls were, or the three peas in the pod that were like shooting off into somewhere. It looked like some type of transportation. The architecture is just wild. The design is wild. Like, this isn't for real, right?
This is what they're selling. First of all, listener, you should go look it up on YouTube. It's under the title "This is Trojena," so that way you can join in. You can see, you can feel.
Also, Trojena. What does that mean? Because I can't help but think of Trojan horse, which isn't a good thing.
I wonder if they want you to they want you to put on your thinking hats and realize that you're being pyramid schemed. There was one interesting quote here. Here it is. Trojena will redefine mountain tourism for the world by creating a place based on the principles of ecotourism, highlighting our efforts to preserve nature and enhance the community's quality of life, which is aligned with the goals of the Kingdom's Vision 2030. It also confirms our commitment to be part of the global effort to protect the environment. Trojena will be an important addition to tourism in the region, a unique example of how Saudi Arabia is creating destinations based on its geographical and environmental diversity. This forward-looking vision will ensure that the mountain tourism will be another revenue stream to support the kingdom's economic diversification while still preserving its natural resources for future generations. Quote from His Royal Highness Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Chairman of the Neom Company Board of Directors. Nothing like a Crown Prince asking for you to take his vision, just to join him on this journey to building a better city. Now, the last episode, I did this whole kind of condemnation about the kafala system and how Saudi Arabia is one of the bigger offenders. Qatar, with migrant workers using the kafala system to build much of the stadiums that everyone seems to enjoy for these World Cups, that resulted in about 6,500 people perishing as a result of it. Who is building Neom or building Trojena? I can't wait for those stories to come out. But
also, I'm just looking up Saudi Arabia's human rights record. The guy that just formed a human rights org there, that's his crime. 17-year sentence. It was 14. In March, they increased it by 3 years because apparently that wasn't enough.
Good enough. Oh, all right. Well, there we have it. So, all that aside, this is the future. This is a city of the future. I mean, at least it's more old world. It's run by proper monarchies. It's back to like a feudalist society. So we can dispense with capitalism in some way because you have no rights. You can't vote, so there's no democracy. So it's like kind of like an old world flair to it. Wow. It's dispense with capitalism because the king now owns everything, and you move on that way. I don't know. This is what I'm getting. I don't know if this is what they're putting down. This is what I'm picking up. I don't know if it's right. I'd love to hear someone who is either backing Neom or actually thinks this might be a city of the future to hear some of what they have to say about it. The history to this point.
What is the wealth of Saudi Arabia? I mean, I know they have money, but these are big projects. Like they must be spending trillions.
Neom is supposed to be the size of Belgium. So yeah, a big project is an understatement in terms of this is one city.
I think that's a country. I thought they said like 500 billion or something like that, but it could have been in the but if I remember correctly, that could have gone into the trillions by some estimates. And then this, because you're right, Neom, you're right in that when I was reading about the line, it was a part of a regional development plan.
Yeah.
And I guess this is I didn't know this was another part. Like these mega cities. And what I'm getting at is someone else funding this stuff?
Well, apparently we can. Apparently we can get in on it. I should have clicked the link to see what they ask. Once I say
it's crowdsourced.
Once I say, hey, I would love to. I mean, but technically, the migrant workers for the Qatar stadiums helped fund that because they had to pay $4,000 approximately in order to become a worker. So this could be something similar to that. I guess I could pay 10 grand as participation, and then I get to fly there and help get my hands dirty by putting my blood, sweat, and tears into the creation of this super city. So it could be that too. It could be partly that.
Yeah. I mean, I could understand if it's an economy dependent on natural resources that are finite. They are trying to invest in their future by creating tourism that will last a lifetime. But, you know, as Antoine rightly pointed out before, it's Saudi Arabia and they have some human rights violations to work through first.
I love that Trump. As Antoine pointed out, it's still a couple of countries with very poor human rights records.
They got some blemishes they need to address. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Amnesty International's website, and I mean, there's just paragraph after paragraph: freedom of expression, human rights, death penalty, migrants' rights, women's rights, girls' rights, right to health.
None of that made it into any of the promotional pieces that I've seen
it's
so
weird.
far.
Yeah, usually you would expect a little bit of countering so you could have a firm debate.
I mean, that's the only way to feel like you could really trust the source is if they at least point out a little bit of the detractions, you know, a little bit of pros and cons.
April 15th, dozens of Sri Lankan women wrongfully detained for months due to abusive kafala system.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, and you did mention that before, that the kafala system is what was used in the World Cup in Qatar, and that is a regional system.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, all throughout the
and these two countries have a border.
They do. Yeah, but everyone uses it straight from Egypt down. It's a system that on paper, I guess, is disbanded. But yet, if you interview various workers or what have you, or you know, a couple of Amnesty International stories, it seems like it's it's doing well. It seems like it's doing okay.
Wow.
So,
all right. Well, that's unfortunate.
That was my lighter story.
I gotta say, it's blowing my mind how ambitious those are. I'm trying to think, like, all right, if the U.S. wanted to, for some reason, really throw its might behind creating a new city, what would that take? Do we have the resources, the money? And what would it be? Would it be the futuristic thing that we would all like wish for? Or would it be, you know, a couple generations above Chicago? What they are proposing in this region is unlike anything that exists. I don't know if that's an understatement or overstatement, but I'm not aware.
I think you're on the money with that.
Looking like this.
Remember, they have high-speed rail in this thing as well. I mean, it's a city of the future.
We'll post the video in the description on YouTube, and we'll promote it on Twitter.
I mean, it's basically like a cloud city. It's something from like science fiction. It's
bubbled glass floating in the air.
What was
it's crazy.
What was that movie? Equilibrium, was it? There was something where the cities in the clouds and like the dregs of humanity are still left on Earth. But like all the wealthy people have
not the Matt Damon one.
I can't remember what it was.
That was in space, and that was called
Elysium, right?
Elysium.
Yeah, it's similar to that. That's how it feels. The imagery that they're invoking here is something that is otherworldly. It does not exist currently on this planet. It is a city that is straight. I was going to go with kind of like
Hunger Games, where it's like everyone's kind of living in districts, and it's really bad. Yeah. But then there's this city that's amazing that they're not really aware of.
Yeah. That's I think that's more apt. That's definitely more acutely on the money.
Oof, that was a light one. Oh boy.
Why don't you round us out? What do you got?
All right. Well, this is maybe a fun one if you want to partake. An update to animal fun fact that I came across. So I remember hearing this, and according to the article, it's been a thing since the 80s. I clearly wasn't aware of it then, but zebra stripes repel flies. It's not the only function of them. It's not the reason why they have stripes. At least no one knows that for sure. But it's one of the reasons. It's one of the benefits of having stripes. And one of the updates to that fact is that some scientists, researchers were running some tests, and they found out that the thickness of stripes don't really matter, because some different species of zebras have thin stripes, some other ones have thick stripes. And the flies don't really see or react to the stripes until they're like a couple feet away. So you got to get kind of close. Now, they also compared the zebra stripe flies to impala skin. So the plain colors of what you would think of when you compare regions of Africa where you would find zebra to zebra skin. And they found that, and where is it? They found that flies chose impalas over zebra 4 times as often.
Okay.
Should be interesting, right? I mean, if you wear zebra clothing or you kind of do that, I would be really curious to see if like you don't get flies on you.
Well, didn't you talk about wearing black and how that's more attractive
for mosquitoes, right? For mosquitoes, because they associate it with shade and they dehydrate very quickly, and so they're always looking for moist areas, which water is retained in shade. So that's why if you wear dark clothing next to people who aren't wearing dark clothing or against a contrasting background that is light, they're all going to come to you, especially in combination with exhaling. If you ever around heavy breathers and it's mosquito season, go sit somewhere else. So again, the stripes aren't the only reason why, or the flies aren't the only reason why zebras have stripes. There's other advantageous reasons. They confuse predators. They make it easy to identify one another. But what's also interesting is that the stripes are confusing the flies, right? Why is it repelling them? And that's because flies have compound eyes. And that combines input from thousands of different photoreceptors. And this results in processing images 10 times faster than humans, but at very low res and with limited color. Now, with this, if you imagine the way that the article explained it, a barber pole, right? How it's striped like a candy cane and it spins. And when it spins, it gives a sensation of movement, like it's moving up or down, right? Depending on the direction. Yeah. That's kind of the cool thing about that design. So when you imagine the fly that's always in motion with the lower res and the limited color, as it gets closer to the zebra, who are probably also moving, but even if they weren't, the flies are, it looks as if the surface is moving. And so there's no safe place to land. So they avoid landing. So it's kind of a cool thing.
That's cool.
And so the article was going into all these different adaptations, different animals, and it was kind of cool to see. But so now that you're in that mindset, because again, this is how my brain works. If you could one day design your genome, would you? And what trait would you pick from the animal kingdom and integrate into your body? So you have stripes, you have those eyes, you have venom and wings and claws and night vision and better hearing and smell with your tongue like a snake, thermal vision, electrical impulses like a shark, right? You can detect them, gills. What would you do? Get to pick. You could pick whatever you want, as many as you want. You still probably want to attract other humans. So you don't want to get too weird.
I mean, it doesn't take much to unattract other humans. Humans are very particular.
Do internal things.
I think the thing that would be most advantageous would definitely be to dive underwater. I guess some sort of gill component is probably the thing that I feel most humans would probably enjoy the most. I think that being able to breathe underwater and explore underwater.
And you'd probably want something more in you that you could counter the pressure from the depth.
I assume that would come if you were
comes with the gills.
I assume
if you were to
that
make a wish on a genie, it wouldn't work that way.
Well, I didn't know this was a monkey paw kind of situation. I didn't know I'm going to get gills and then not be able to go more than 3 feet underwater. You're right. I mean, that would be if I could only sit in the shallows. Yeah, you're right. That's pretty rough.
You can only answer the questions you ask. That's what the doctor would say.
I got some ugly little gills on me, and I can't even breathe. I can breathe underwater for party tricks, basically, because you're saying I can't do anything. But if you could do something with it and actually dive deeper, that would be kind of cool. That would be really cool. I think that would be
a cool one. That is fun, right? Because it would be
interesting. It would protect you too, because you wouldn't feel so. It would be so scary to sail, or I mean, not that it is scary to sail, but if you fell off of a boat like those ice fishermen or what have you. You fall into the ocean, freezing waters. If you had some some sort of evolution that allowed you to breathe underwater and
still have enough fat to survive, but yeah,
that's true. I mean, I'm just saying there are other things you could do. I'm just saying you're not going to drown. How about that? You're not going to drown immediately, because you can breathe underwater. So it gives you a little bit more to survive. How about that? It's just a little bit more.
That is, I mean, you could survive in more environments on this planet. It would make you more of a creature of this planet. That is an interesting one.
It'd be fun. It's the reverse. It's kind of the reverse of us working so hard to come out of the water, and then now it's like you've come full circle. You can now enjoy the ocean that you once came from. Whence we came. Now we're 360. It's very philosophical. It's beautiful. The more you think about it, people. The more you think about it, the more beautiful it becomes.
So you went with that. I'm not opposed to that. That's kind of throwing me now, because I go diving, so I do enjoy that, and being able to do it without, like, unaided, and for as long as I could. Now, one of the main reasons why you can't go diving over and over is because the temperature too. Like, you can't stay under so long. You lose body temperature so much faster in the water. But that would be interesting. My head was going towards vision, whether it's night vision, thermal vision, or probably night vision, because I wouldn't want thermal vision all the time, because that's super weird. But or just like an eagle and just being able to see better. But then again, I was getting thrown off because, and you might have solved it, because I don't want to have anything that is going to make it hard for me to interact with people. And I would be curious, like, eagles can see for miles. And what would that be? Like, does that mess me up somehow? I don't know. Or can I just see everything close up and at depth with clarity that no one else could?
You see, that's why I went with what I went with, because now you don't want something that makes it difficult for you to live your everyday life. So if your vision were to improve, can you go into a coffee shop now? Like, would that be too disorienting to have things be that close, because you're always expecting things to be so much further away, because you're always your vision is seeing 100 yards out, right?
Yeah, I wonder.
It's great at a stadium game. It's great at a football game or something, but would that be a little awkward if you were in more enclosed spaces? Because I'm just saying, eagles do not live in houses, so they don't have to navigate very close quarters. I don't know what their vision is like for short distances, but I'm just saying they're usually living outside, where the vision is always advantageous. You have to switch. You have to, can you go to a movie theater now? I mean, can you watch a screen that's that? I mean, like,
that's what do eagles get disoriented with things up close?
That's what I'm wondering. If you
listeners and watchers, let us know if you actually know that. I wonder, like, could you make an eagle nauseous or give him a headache if you were to put too many stimulations up close for a period of time?
Yeah, I do wonder that. I think that is an interesting question. I'm just saying, but now you have to think about that. Whereas, I chose something that can only be helpful, because if I'm not using my gills, I'm still breathing air.
You also picked a recreation thing. Now, you did name, your extreme jobs that would benefit as a safety precaution, but that's not you. So you did name something recreational. Is there anything that would improve your just general well-being, or your ability to enjoy everyday life?
Well, I mean, I think that you would modify where you chose to live and what you chose to do in terms of your everyday life. I probably would pick a profession that put me more on the ocean, because I know that I have an advantageous skill over others who happen to be, doing those particular types of jobs. So maybe I would do more, because again, it's like you could either hire this guy who has to get into a scuba suit, or I could just go down and clean the barnacles off of the ship.
It offers a new line of work.
I'm just saying.
It also has the potential for you to be, I guess, exploited.
Well, I mean, I guess you could always be exploited.
You're the only one that can do that job.
We talked about the beautiful people that are close cousins that resurface after a millennia.
Yeah, last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying it could always happen. So you're right. You're right.
All right, interesting. Yeah. Well, that was that. I'm just curious if you could do it, because you'll get to a point probably within our lifetime where, and I think you can do it to a degree now, you can design your child. If you have enough money, you can pick whether or not it's male or female, at least. And then you could probably start to edit genomes more than that in the near future. And it won't be far-fetched. It'll be probably more ethical than feasible as to whether you could enhance yourself with animal traits, refined traits. I don't think you're going to put wings on your back or something like that. Your wings would have to be pretty big, actually, if you ever looked it up. But to improve your eyes, maybe your eyes won't be eagle eyes, like if you're to look at those and you're like cat eyes or lion eyes with like diamonds and or yellow. I don't think they'll be that, but to understand what makes them better and maybe increase the amount of color cones or receptors or whatever, right? And to start improving yourself. Maybe you get tougher skin for better endurance.
I think it's funny that you didn't bring up flying, because I steered clear of it for actual real reasons. I was like, I think there are more problems to flight than
we're not built for flight.
Advantages.
It's not, if we were to have wings, it's not angel wings. That's not a thing. They would be our arms. They would be enormous. And your breast muscles, whatever those are called, your pectorals would be enormous.
That's why I didn't go with
they would be absurdly big.
You would be
a
hideous.
Different animal.
You would be hideous. You would be absolutely hideous.
We don't have the joints for that. Like you need, like I said, integrate. Like if you want to change what you fundamentally are, then you would want wings. They just don't work that way.
That's why I stayed away from it.
Yeah. Maybe gliders. Maybe you get the angel wings and you could just glide.
Maybe
you don't have to flap them. They just kind of shoot out from your back.
They would still be enormous. It
would be enormous. Yeah, to carry your
12-foot
wings
on your back at all times. Have fun getting a cup of coffee with those.
Well, your back too, like your lower back. What does that do?
God. Yeah, how do you? That's the other thing. Yeah, exactly. How does it hold you up? Yeah. There's a lot of
like so
problems.
back heavy. You fall back constantly. You counter that weight.
So you'd wish to fly, and then you'd be bedridden, more or less. That's basically what we're trying to say here?
The irony of it.
Anyway, JB, where can they find us,
folks? Everyone, please show us your support. You guys have been fantastic so far. Please keep it going. We're really excited to be on YouTube. Subscribe, like, share, and comment at Retraction Media on there. That's the same handle for Twitter at Retraction Media. Follow us on there and engage. And share the episode with people. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and more.
And with that, Retraction out.